Still on the matter of the Code of Conduct Bureau and the Code of Conduct Tribunal, joining us now from our Abuja studios is Kingsley Chinda. He's a lawyer and a member of the National Assembly. Good morning and thanks for joining us. For so many people, and even Olisa Agbakuba, they believe that politicians should be wary of the way this is handled. How does this come to members of the National Assembly?
Good morning. Well, to members of the National Assembly, I think majority of us see this as an assault on the institution of legislation. Clearly, what is political trial is not one against corruption. Nigerians will all believe that a war against corruption should be followed to the letter, and that we should all support the president in that battle. But when you begin to politicize it, we also think that it is not good for our democracy. And we must also realize that this institution, that is the legislature, is the core, is the gravamen, the cement, in fact, the plank upon which our democracy stands. So an assault on it amounts to an assault on our democracy. We would want these issues resolved, because we want to continue to salvage our democracy. We want the judiciary to step in and do justice in the matter. Our interest is not that Saraki, if he has committed an offense, should not be tried, no. But where you now begin to bring in politics into it in order to witch hunt people, we think that outside Saraki it could also happen to any other Nigerian. Now let me take you a little bit back to the history of where we're coming from. In June, the Senate president emerged, although he was not the favored candidate of the powers that be. The same also happened in the House of Representatives, where Honorable Dogara emerged as the speaker against the choice candidates of the powers that be. I read in the papers then that within the next 6 months, these leaders of the National Assembly will vacate their seats forcefully. And 3 months after, we are seeing a cooked-up trial of the president of the Senate. We think that the president, our president, Muhammadu Buhari, should not just sit by the fence. He has to look into these matters, and then a decision taken, a decision that will not just be fair, that will be seen to be fair. We are not shielding the Senate president if he has committed a crime, but we know, and I'm sure that most Nigerians know, that this trial is a political one.
Mr. Chinda, why would you say this is cooked up? Did you get to see the charge sheet, which is in the public space?
Now, firstly, I have said that we are not very concerned about the trial proper. But if you look at the circumstance, if the Code of Conduct Tribunal Act, that's 2004, which clearly provides that a charge before that tribunal must come from the Attorney General or somebody that is appointed or nominated to so bring that charge by the Attorney General. And Saraki has taken a further step to challenge the process and procedure upon which that charge was brought. Rather than allow time, even in a common criminal trial, 2 days after the first hearing, the second hearing, a bench warrant was issued against the number 3 citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Clearly, it shows that some persons are already biased. This is somebody that you know cannot jump bail. This is somebody you know that cannot abandon his office because of that matter. I mean, the issuance of a bench warrant points to the fact that there is a plan already in place for members of that tribunal, the chairman and the other members.
Sorry, if I may come in here, when would you have expected the warrant to be, seeing that the Senate president was invited, but he did not show up? You didn't expect any warrant to come in at all?
A warrant was not necessary at that point, because not just that he did not show up, he took steps. He's gone to court to challenge it. A responsible judicial body will allow that trial to fizzle out, or will also take another judicial step to ensure that justice is not only done, but is seen to be done.
Okay, seeing that the Senate president didn't show up, a bench warrant was given, and then he went ahead to appeal, don't you think he's also seeing that the CCT has its own jurisdiction as well?
Clearly, we are not saying that the CCT has no jurisdiction. It has jurisdiction. It's set up by law. And
but
that law...
you're only concerned about the procedure.
We are talking about the procedure. Once you take a step, and somebody has challenged that step in a court of law, it is only reasonable that you stay for that action, whether rightly or wrongly. If he is not right in his challenge, of course the matter will be thrown out, and he will come back to you. But for you to go ahead, knowing that there is a matter before another competent court of law to issue a bench warrant, I mean, it's not a proper step to take.
Mr. Chinda, would it have been too much, or would it have been wrong for the Senate President to just have answered that request to appear? Do you think it would have been too much?
Now, the Senate President has options, either to answer that call and raise his objection before them, or to take the step he took to challenge the procedure in another court of competent jurisdiction. And he opted for the second step. There is nothing wrong with that.
Now, quite a number of people will say that, every time that politicians are brought before the law, you always get the response or the chorus that this is a witch hunt. This is politically motivated. Why does that seem to be the case at almost every point in time?
Now, clearly, let me also state that most often, too, when such matters come up, we find out that they are being provoked by some other persons behind the scene against politicians. Of course, it's still politicians that will provoke it, most often. And that's why, if you discover such issues, you know that you cannot get justice. You need to go to a court where you are sure that you can get justice. Like I took us back a little bit. 3 months ago, it was trumpeted that Senate President Senator Bukola Saraki will not last for more than 6 months, and that also the Speaker of the House of Reps will not last for more than 6 months. Nigerians should watch out. As soon as this is over, another issue concerning the Speaker of the House of Representatives will come up. And when that happens...
But tell us, because one must also ask, where do you think this is coming from then? Are you saying then that the CCB is subject to the whims and caprices of the APC, or do you think this is coming from somewhere else?
It's not about the APC, because Saraki is a member of the APC. And there are APC senators, too, that condemn what is happening. It is about a cabal, a group of persons who feel that they ought to be in charge of the governance of this country. But they have forgotten that our democracy is growing. Today, we have a system where a sitting president lost the election and handed over to the opposition quietly. That is growth in our democracy. So people should begin to realize, particularly politicians like us, we must begin to realize that things are changing and our democracy is growing. We must support it to grow. Allow things to happen naturally. Members have chosen their leaders. You don't need to continue to heat up the politics.
But your accusations, excuse me, sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Honorable Chinda. Your accusations are not specific. You've asked the presidency or the president specifically, to intervene in this matter. The presidency has washed his hands off it. You're also saying this is not about the APC because the Senate president is a member of the APC. Then who possibly could be witch hunting the Senate president?
There are those who initially didn't want him to emerge as the Senate president and did everything to stop him. And after his emergence, they swore that within 6 months, he will be ousted from office. I don't think I need to say more. We're all in this country.
Yeah, because what we're trying to establish, Honorable Chinda, what we're trying to establish, because what you're making is an allegation on national television, even though you haven't mentioned any names. But what we're trying to establish is the link, because let's not forget that this is also the Code of Conduct Tribunal, which is established by law. It is empowered by the Constitution. The Code of Conduct Tribunal and its members, and the link between these people who made that noise. Is there any link whatsoever? Have you seen any thread or relationship between them?
Now, if you look at the powers of the Code of Conduct Tribunal to punish, what kind of punishment are they empowered to mete out? Under that law, I think Section 22, you find out that they have powers to remove an elected officer or an appointed person from office, and also bar you from assuming any public office for a period of not more than 10 years. And so the target is to remove the Senate president from office. It clearly points to the fact, if you tie that to the fact that 3 months back, there has been that threat that he will not last for more than 6 months, what's the reasonable conclusion that anybody would draw?